Hey guys, it's Kesara, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. This book was sent to me by Saga Press in exchange for an unbiased review, and whoever at Saga decided to reach out to me deserves a raise or something because they seem to know my reading style better than I do, because I did not really expect to like this book that much. It's romantasy, which I do like a good romantasy. Like, I'm not against romantasy by any means, which is why I agreed to pick this book up, but I did not expect to love this as much as I actually did, but we have a lot to get into. So as always, we're going to be talking about four main things: characters, plot, world building, and writing style. In The Serpent and the Wolf, we are following Vasa, who is the daughter of an emperor, and she has been arranged to marry a foreman who is potentially the next headman or leader of a nearby country, and he's the foreman of like his province within this new country, and his name is Reed. But Vasa obviously does not want anything to do with this marriage, so they come to an agreement that she is going to help him like get this headman vote, and then after 3 years he will basically grant her a divorce. Then we also have this other subplot in which she has this magic that killed her mother, and she inherited the magic, and now she has to learn how to like control this magic or else it's going to kill her. And the only reason she was allowed to go through with marriage, because her brother is now the emperor, is because she has the magic. Her brother thinks that she's going to die, and that's why he lets her get married, because otherwise he wouldn't want her as competition for his throne. And he's kind of portrayed as this like evil, kind of corrupted leader. So there's a lot going on, a lot of really great political intrigue. There's a romance between Vasa and Reed. It really starts off strong because there's like this hook at the beginning. Very first chapter, it starts right after they got married and they're going to their like wedding night. Basically, she ties him up, considers killing him, and then runs away. So it was a lot of fun. The very first scene definitely hooked me into the story in a way I wasn't expecting to. Like, it really got me into the story, but there is a lot of other things about the story that I really loved. Because of that, I would say this is like romantasy. Like, the romance is a very heavy part of this story, but at the same time, like I've said in like my reading vlog, I would say this is like 50% romance, 50% fantasy, because it does have that like magic subplot, and with that magic there's kind of like a mystery thriller plot like threaded through the entire story, so the romance doesn't like take over the whole story. So I would say it's like 50% fantasy, 50% romance, which I feel like most romantasies are more like 75% romance. So I feel like this one has a good balance that a lot of other romantasies probably a little bit too much on the romance side, while this balance worked for me really well. So the first thing that we have to get into with this book is the characters. There is a great cast of characters in this book. First, of course, we have Vasa, who's our main character. I love her because she is super strong-willed. She is not afraid to like just act, which I love about her. She's very strong in that respect, but at the same time, she has deep insecurities about what she's been through. She has like a traumatic like upbringing and childhood, and when she first arrives in this story, she has just like witnessed her mother's death and then was sold away to another country. So she's been put into a very difficult situation, and she handles it very well. She's definitely in fight or flight mode at the beginning of the story. She finds her own when she like meets the other magic users. Viraji witches is what they're called in the story. But when she like finds that group of people, which are basically her coven, and she's able to get that support system, she really blooms into a very beautiful character, and I love that for her. Then we have Reed, which I feel like we don't get that much of Reed, but the part of him that do get, I think, works really well, because at the very beginning of the novel, in the first chapter, she literally ties him up and almost kills him. Like, she puts a knife to his neck and like is going to kill him. I feel like he could have handled that in a really poor way, but he handled that really well, and I feel like we know his intentions from the very beginning of the story, and he just seems like an all-around good person, despite like his reputation that she believes he is before that. I feel like there's not that much to his character, but at the same time, that is his character. Like, I know people in real life that are like that don't think that deeply into things, or at least into these sort of things. But then again, there are parts of it where he actually gets anxious and gets into this kind of like mood that like it's like, it's kind of sweet. It's kind of cute to watch him, which is like a person who's like super cool, calm, and collected most of the time, like actually get anxious about things. That was just one of the most like endearing scenes that I felt like was in the whole book. Like, I feel like the characters really were written like real people. There are a couple of other characters I want to get into. The main two here are Emily and Kesara. So Kesara is Reed's like main bodyguard, and I feel like she is more loyal to him than she is to herself, which is just so great. And I love that Vasa also does not hold it against her. And then of course we have Emily, who is a character who has been through a lot and yet still manages to be like this breath of fresh air whenever she's on the page. I do think some things that happen to her just make me really sad, but at the same time, I just love that she's in this book and that she becomes such a good friend with Vasa as well, because Vasa is one of those characters that like she needs a good friend, and that's who Emily is for her. So like all the characters in general, I feel like worked really well in this novel. And then we have Melusina as well. Forgot to mention Melusina, who is Reed's mother, but also is like the leader of the Vrajay witches, which is Vasa's coven. But at the same time, she's also kind of raised by, I think it's Vasa's grandmother. So like there's like an intricate connection there, and like Melusina has also been through a lot of stuff. So I feel like the characters in general have been through a lot, and because of that, they don't feel like one-sided characters or anything like that. They do feel like real people the entire time. So next I want to talk about the character relationships. I will say when it comes to character, I feel like the relationships is where it kind of didn't fully work for me. While I did like the tension between Reed and Vasa, I feel like there wasn't very much to build their relationship off of other than like Vasa's background. Like there wasn't that much on Reed's side. We didn't get too much backstory there. I mean, there was like a little bit, but overall, I feel like he liked her right away just for her like temperament. But I feel like there was just more that we could have gotten from like their relationship that wasn't really there, but I still enjoyed it. So I feel like here for the romance, maybe this is not the book for you, but overall, I still really like the book. So take that with a grain of salt. I will say there were other relationships that I feel like could have been more nuanced and just weren't. Like, for example, the relationship between Vasa and her brother Dominic, who is now the ruler of Asteria, which is the nation that she's from, just feels very one-dimensional. She basically just hates him. And I feel like there should be more to that relationship. Like, if you grew up with this person and he's your brother, like he's your sibling, you should have a more intricate relationship than, oh, I just hate this person. Like, I feel like there should be part of her that still loves him. Like, there should be some interaction that they had in the past that she remembers, and that's why like she might hesitate before like attacking him or whatever. I just feel like the entire time she just hated him, and like he was just an evil person the entire time. That's another thing. It's just, he's just evil the entire time. Like, he has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, but I feel like for the most part, we're not seeing him doing evil things. We're just kind of like told that he's evil. So I think that's part of the reason why I also don't like that relationship. The one relationship that I did really like was Melusina and Reed. Melusina is Reed's mother, and that relationship I found to be incredibly interesting because she arranges his marriage with Vasa without telling him why she was arranging that marriage. I'm not gonna go into it. It's just an interesting dynamic, and I kind of love that dynamic. So that was really good. And then the other one is the relationship between Reed and Kesara. Kesara is his guard, and as I said, she seems more loyal to him than she is to herself, but I kind of love that about her, and just like how they interact, I found that to just be like a fun part of the story. Next, I want to talk about world building, and I have to say I wasn't expecting much from the world building, but this book definitely delivers. There are two countries, not that many, but at the same time, one of the countries, Incuria, has like different provinces, so we have like different leaders of Incuria that we are meeting throughout the entire time, and Reed is trying to get elected. So we're actually not only meeting these different leaders of Incuria, we're also like trying to understand like different things about the provinces and how like he would be elected over other leaders. So that part of it I thought was a lot of fun and well thought out. And then of course like the conflicts between Incuria and Asteria, which is the country that Vasa is from, where her brother is the emperor, who's basically like this evil dictator. Just having that conflict as well, and that part of the world building as well, I think fit really well into the overall political story. The part that I didn't love is the magic. Not necessarily the magic itself. I think specifically how it was described. Like, we don't get a whole lot of information on the magic, which I feel like we could have, because there's a part where Vasa like runs away and she goes to a library monastery to study like some of this magic, but then we don't get any of that information of what she studied. And then also she actually starts learning the magic from like actual witches, magic users, and we don't really get too much of her learning the magic. Like it's very like soft magic in the way that she learns it rather than like a more intricate system. But at the same time, the plot kind of hinges on part of the magic, which kind of annoys me, but at the same time, I still really liked it. I mean, the magic, the world building is not perfect, but it's intricate enough that it worked for me for what I was expecting. So now it's time to talk about the plot, and the plot of this book is what really made this book for me. I love the plot so much. There are so many twists and turns. There are, towards the end, I'm not gonna go into it. I'll go into it during the spoiler section because this is the part that I loved about it the most, but there are a lot of twists and turns, especially in the last, like I want to say 50 pages, but like even leading up to that, from the very first chapter, it hooked me with like that arranged marriage sort of scenario where we have a character who like really doesn't want to be part of this, but at the same time, like she doesn't want to be part of it, not because it's an arranged marriage, but for other reasons. It's definitely super fast-paced plot. I feel like it never really stopped. There's a lot of political intrigue here with Reed, with the election that he wants to become headman, but then also with the conflict, Asteria and her brother, but also like within the different provinces of Incuria, just like that political intrigue between the different provinces with the different countries, and then the actual like romance tension between Reed and Vasa, I think worked really, really well to keep me on my toes the entire time I was reading this book. The one gripe that I would have about the plot of this book is the lack of foreshadowing. I really feel like there was a lot of things that we could have just gotten like a couple of hints and details ahead of time to like really understand this world better, to really understand kind of like where the plot was going, or potentially where the plot's going, where the mystery plot was going at least, which just weren't there. Like there were characters that I feel like popped up out of nowhere that I was just like, hey, who is this person? Have they mentioned this person before? And like, no, they hadn't mentioned that person before. From that side of it, I do think there was just a lack of foreshadowing, which the plot could have been amazing if it had that foreshadowing, because I feel like some of it could have foreshadowed without actually giving away what the plot twists were gonna be, which would have been amazing. But at the same time, the plot twist still worked for me, and it was super fast-paced with the plot twist still working for me. So I still think it worked out in the end, and I ended up loving this, but I'll definitely have more information on that in the spoilery section. And last but not least, we have to get to writing style. Honestly, I don't have very much to say about writing style. I found this book super easy to read and fast-paced. I do think that this book could have been better if it slowed down a little bit and actually had a little bit more detail, but other than that, I don't really have very much to say about writing style. So let's get into the spoilers. Now it is time for the spoiler section. So if you haven't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled for it, you should click off now, because I'm going to get into spoilers here for all the people who have read the book and just want to talk about and just want to discuss together. There's a couple of things that I wanted to go into in the spoiler section. Not that much. One of the things I had a gripe about that I mentioned previously was the foreshadowing, and specifically foreshadowing of two things. First, Mathjin, and then Ozik. Both of them I was not expecting. I think part of it was it foreshadowed Dominic being like the big bad antagonist the entire time. I didn't want that from him to begin with, but at the same time, it was just like no one else has like even a modicum of like, I guess, shade thrown at them. Maybe Kesara a little bit, just because she's kind of rude to Vasa at the very beginning. But at the beginning, like, I kind of expected that, so like I didn't really have negative feelings towards Kesara from that. The only like little bit, I think, of foreshadowing of Mathjin like not being happy. First time he shows up and he asks her about like how she wouldn't, he asked her like about her relatives. Specifically, they were talking about, it was, I think it was like killing or betraying Dominic in some way, and he asked her about that. And then after that, he doesn't seem at all like, there's nothing about him that questionable. Like, we don't learn anything about his past. I feel like it would have been so easy to give like his past before the whole plot reveal, and still not make it obvious that he was gonna betray them all, because how he betrayed them is kind of stupid. I can kind of see where like a father and grandfather who like very emotional could do something that's stupid, but at the same time, like it's irrational, so you wouldn't expect it from him even knowing his backstory. So I feel like that's a backstory we could have had like way ahead of time. Like it wouldn't actually have like made us think that he was gonna be the betrayer, but at the same time, when it was revealed that he was the betrayer, it would have been like an oh wow moment. Like obviously we should have expected that, right? So like I think just like the mechanics of the plot there just didn't work for me. Also, him showing up in that first scene brought me out of the story because I was like, Mouthchin, who is this person? Like he was never mentioned ahead of time, when it could have been super easy like in the beginning of the novel, like around the time that we meet Kasana and like some of the other characters, to just mention that Reed's advisor's name is Mouthchin. So like that kind of threw me off. A lot of this foreshadowing could have been fixed if there was just a proper chapter ahead of like the whole like already being married thing. Like if we'd started with the wedding, we could have gotten all of that backstory in a scene that was interesting, and then we wouldn't have needed all of this. So I just feel like we just needed a chapter or two at the beginning of the novel and it would have been like amazing, but obviously we didn't have that. And then the Ozic thing, I actually really loved that twist because I was not expecting that twist. I feel like I should have been expecting that twist, but I was not expecting it. I did like that twist a lot better than the first one because I think this one actually makes a lot more sense. Again, absolutely no foreshadowing here. I feel like there could have been hints and clues throughout the novel and there just wasn't, but overall I still ended up liking that twist really a lot, and that's actually part of the reason why I ended up giving this book 5 stars, because I feel like if there wasn't like the triple twist there where it's Mouthchin, then it's Dominic, and then it's Ozeg, if it wasn't like that intricate of a plot twist towards the end, I probably would have just given this 4 stars. But that plot twist at the end, multitude of plot twists, I think bumped it up for me. But I still feel like we should have been able to guess, or at least have some clue in our minds why he might be interested, you know, betraying his ruler, which was Dominic at the time. Or I guess technically it wasn't Dominic, it was their father that he betrayed because he killed their mother. That was something that I feel like there could have been foreshadowing to. Their only thing that there was foreshadowing to was like magic side of it, where she smelled the Zatir magic and recognized it as the same smell from like when her mother died. And I felt like that was a good connection, which is why I think it actually worked for me. But I feel like if it didn't have that, it would have been just completely out of place. But since there was that part, it did still work for me, but I feel like it could have taken this book from good to really great. Either way, I still ended up really loving this book. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.